I seen a young quarterback take a step in the right direction. You know, try not. They did a lot of comparisons during the week, and I feel like it was a hell of a comparison to be compared to Josh Allen. But as you come into your own, Drake Maye has to be Drake Maye. You know, and I was just so proud of him. You know, coming in here and leading the team. You know, being a young quarterback can be hard sometimes, and you know that's why you have a supporting cast. You know, running backs making plays, receivers making plays, and let them know that you got his back. So I was just super proud of him.
Lots to be proud of in that win over the Buffalo Bills for the New England Patriots as they continue to take steps forward, build the foundation, and find ways to grow in the process. Welcome into Foxboro Rush on a rainy Wednesday here in New England, but still reason to be smiling after that big win, like I said, on Sunday Night Football. Keagan Stiefel, Jade McCarthy here with you. Look, I mean, we saw Drake Maye shine on the biggest stage on his chance to do it for the first time playing in prime time. And we've seen Steph Diggs obviously shine in his return to Buffalo, a place he used to call home. But beyond that, Keagan, really say all the right things about being a leader on this team, about leading by his action, and then leading with his words as well. There's a lot of reason to be optimistic, including the schedule ahead, which we'll talk about coming up in just a bit here. But let's just talk about the dynamics of this team and what we're seeing them build in Foxborough to start.
Yeah, I mean, the word that comes to mind, and it's been fleeting for years at this point, is competence. They are competent at every level, from coaching to the roster to, the way they're discussing the things that happened after the game, with the media. We saw last year, I was on this show last year every week talking about how Gerard Mayo had stuck his foot in his mouth, how, Ramondre Stevenson said something that wasn't too smart, or Hunter Henry was avoiding questions in a weird way. It was kind of a disaster at all levels. And this year you're seeing on the field, off the field, during the week, during Sundays or game days, it's competence. They are saying and doing the right things at all times, and that's all you could ask for as a Patriots fan.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the expression that I thought best described when Mike Vrabel got the job here in New England and things started to shift and focus upon what he wanted this team to be was the grown-ups are back in charge. And I don't
Right.
mean that and to repeat that as a knock on Gerard Mayo. Quite honestly, I think he didn't know what he didn't know. But Mike Vrabel has done this before. We've seen him have success as a coach, both, collegiately, not as a head coach, but, getting his coaching chops collegiately. And then we
Right.
saw him do it in the NFL, leading up to being the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. So, he already knew what he wanted to establish and what his tenets of coaching and leadership and requirement for his players were going to be, right? I mean, he brought all of that knowledge here and he makes it abundantly clear to his players. And we've said this before, but it bears repeating, Keagan. There's no gray area. Like, you know
Right.
exactly where you stand with Mike Vrabel, whether it be someone who's coaching underneath him or someone who is playing for him. And I think that's why guys enjoy being in his on his team as much as they
Yeah.
do, because everybody wants to know where they stand, and it makes it a lot easier to do your job and to do it well and to do it, with competence and comprehension and consistency when you know exactly what you have to do
Right.
and how you're actually executing on it.
Yeah, and we'll get more into it later, obviously, with the players, the on-field product. That's what everybody wants to talk about. But when it comes to Vrabel, for me, you mentioned all of the things that he learned from and that he was able to establish during his previous stints in Tennessee and Houston as a defensive coordinator, at Ohio State as a defensive coordinator. But I think the failure has really, you're starting to see that the things he failed at in his last stop, maybe he's not allowing those to kind of take over like he did in Tennessee, putting the trust into the wrong people and kind of digging his heels into certain decisions that weren't the right decisions, and he didn't want to admit that, and he just kept going at it. I mean, we saw this week Ramondre Stevenson fumbled again. and they had to dig their heels in because Antonio Gibson goes down with an injury. And it ends up working out. But moving forward, this is another example of, you've said something outwardly. We're not going to punish this guy. He's a professional. We really need him. But moving forward, if he keeps hurting your football team, are you going to be able to revert and go back to maybe giving the ball to TreVeyon Henderson? They're going to have to bring up another running back onto the roster. Are you going to give
Yeah.
that guy more opportunities? Because you can't continue to allow somebody to hurt your football team. That's what I'm looking forward to moving forward, because all the stuff that he learned how to do correctly, he's applied. And the Patriots are doing all those things well. Now it's, can you have a little bit of humility in the fact that you said one thing and it clearly isn't working out, and you're going to have to go the other direction? That's what I would like to see moving forward.
Well, and Ramondre Stevenson also has a hand in that decision as well. I
Absolutely.
mean, it depends on what he's going to do, right? Like if he cleans it up and he goes out there and plays, turnover free football, he's going to make Mike Vrabel's decision and this coaching staff's decision a lot easier as well. And he's clearly getting the opportunity to do that. I think they would all like to see him respond in a positive way and go out there and be the contributor that I think everybody in that room believes Ramondre can be. But I
Right.
totally hear your point in the sense that I've had an NFL executive say to me, "Look, the biggest challenge in this league and what really does in a lot of teams are when they make a mistake and they stay with it and they're unwilling
Mhm.
to move on from it and say." Basically not even having to raise your hand and say I messed up, but more so just take the action that demonstrates the okay, this wasn't the right thing to do, and I'm willing to just move on because I know that's going to benefit me in the long run, right? I mean, we can
Yeah.
list time and time again when that hasn't happened, and then we can list times when it actually has happened and it's worked to a franchise's favor. Sometimes those are huge decisions, when it comes to your quarterback, right? I mean, we saw Cincinnati make a move yesterday, and that applies. Like clearly it was not working with Jake
Right.
Browning, not working. So, they went out and they found what they think is a solution, they hope, in bringing Joe Flacco in and giving up a pick and hoping that at some point, Burrow is able to come back, which I think is a huge question mark. But if he can, then maybe at least Joe Flacco helps get you there. So it's a little bit of, can you acknowledge the fact that the move that you initially went with was not the right move and find a
Right.
solution to it in a short span of time, right? Let's talk a little bit more specifically about this Patriots team, and let's start with the draft pick because I know you put your hand up and said what you're asking some of these coaches and franchises to say, which was, man, I got this one wrong. Like I got it wrong. And you did.
Yeah.
Like you owned up to it 100%. And I'm talking, of course, about their first overall pick this past year in Will Campbell, who really, since training camp and rookie mini camp, like he's said all the right things. He's been doing all the right things. And man, like he has been leaving it out there on the field, and that has been enough of his talking. He really hasn't had to say too much, Keegan.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it again. People saw the tweet. They might not have heard it from my lips. I was wrong about Will Campbell. And the reason I was wrong was because I put so much, you know, credence into the idea that with his arm length, it's the thing that everybody talked about all the way leading up to the draft and the moment that he got drafted. He would have had to have been a statistical outlier, a one of one, to find consistent success in the NFL. I believed, if no one's ever done it, why is this guy going to be the one that does it? And through 5 weeks, he's been the guy to do it. And it's not so much focusing on what he doesn't have, which is the long arms that are able to keep you competitive with guys like AJ Epinesa, Gregory Rousseau, who we saw last week, just freakishly built athletes, guys who they win with that arm length. He's so creative, and he's shown such a flexibility and an ability to kind of anchor down against these guys that you overlooked when you took into that arm length into account. So, like I said, I was wrong in going about it that way and not trusting the tape and trusting the measurements that we got from the combine. So from what we've seen against some really good pass rushers, obviously like Joey Bosa isn't what he used to be. Cam Hayward gave him a lot of trouble against Pittsburgh. So Max
Yeah.
Crosby gave
Yep.
him some trouble. These are the best of the best, right? Veterans, guys who have been doing it forever. He's not going to be perfect, but from what I've seen uh, in the first 5 weeks versus what I thought it was going to be, it's been much better. We're just going to have to see how it shakes out over the next few weeks before I really plant my flag in the Will Campbell as a superstar left tackle camp. You know, coming up right here, Cam Jordan, Myles Garrett, and then the two rookies for the Falcons, Jalen Walker and James Pierce. If he can hold his own against those guys, he can hold it against anybody. We just have to see it. So the next few weeks are going to be really important before we fully get into the he's a superstar category. But from what we've seen, he's been tremendous. He's been everything I thought he wasn't going to be able to be.
Yeah, look, I mean, and really, most people will say, "Give me 3 years." Like, give me 3 years, and I'm willing
Right.
to evaluate a draft pick and tell you, if he is living up to the expectation, if you will. And there's always so much talk, this about arm length. Like, how much does it really matter? How much should we just look at the tape? And it's one of those things that it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? And some people
Right.
are going to put more weight on the measurements, and some people are going to put more weight on the tape itself, right? I mean, I've done work for the 33rd team, and I can't even tell you how many times Mike Tannenbaum has said to me, like, go back to the tape, go back to the tape, just go back to the
Yeah.
tape. Like, generally speaking, like, that's what you have to go back to. That is what tells
Yeah.
you the most out of everything. And most, GMs around the league will tell you that at this point in time. And they're all like, you can only get so much out of the combine and this, that, and the other thing. You get this like teeny tiny window with these guys to see who they are as people. And the visits obviously to your own facility tell you a lot more than what you can learn there at the combine. But look, Will Campbell, if we can pull up the numbers, what he has done on the field this season, he has certainly in the early going, I think, lived up to it. You look at what he did against Will Campbell, against Joey Bosa, 40 pass blocking snaps, no sacks, of course, no pressures, no hits, only 2 hurries. I mean, like, those numbers jump off the page, Keagan.
Yeah, they do. And I do want to, and this isn't like a defending myself kind of situation. I think it's important to think about all the factors that go into this. The Patriots run more play action than anybody in the world. Play action is designed to slow down the pass rush, to bring up linebackers, and to really open up spaces for short throws, quick throws. The Patriots do that on purpose. They know what their offensive line is. Will Campbell's been great. He's not perfect. They have another
No, and it's a
rookie
young
at left
line.
guard and Jared Wilson. It's a very right. Morgan Moses, for as great as he's been as a leader off the field, bringing all these younger guys along, that's not a long-term solution on the right side. So they've had to design things around what their personnel is, and that's like we talked about earlier. It's not digging your feet in. It's changing things, moving things to make sure that you're putting your team in the best position to succeed, and that's what they're doing, which is great. But you know these numbers, these PFF grades, I think, if we talk to Tannenbaum right now, like you said, go back to the tape, go back to the tape. The numbers
Yeah.
can be very deceiving when it comes to what are they doing? What is the offense trying to accomplish? It's really hard for Joey Bosa to get pressure when Drake Maye's average time to throw is like 2.4 seconds. Drake Maye's best throw on Sunday, he was getting dragged down to the turf by his, chest plate
Yeah.
because they got pressure on him. So, you know, I think those numbers, they might not necessarily be super accurate, or even if they are accurate, they're a little bit deceiving to what the product on the field is. But I will go back and I will say it again, based off what we've seen through 5 weeks. And I know you mentioned it takes 3 years to really evaluate a prospect. Through the first 5 weeks, if we can evaluate, he's been everything they've needed and more. So he's been really good, but we have to pump the brakes before we crown him because it's going to take some time for him to really get to that full superstar level, the level that where you can trust him to go on an island against these superstar guys that we'll see coming up in the next few weeks.
And you know what maybe I love the most about it is that I think he would totally agree with all of that.
Right.
Like, every time you ask him about his play, he sits there and he says, I got to get better. Like, there are some things that I did well, and there are some things that still need to be improved. And I just want to keep talking to guys who have done this, who have played this position, keep learning from them, keep gelling with the other guys on the line with me, and find ways to continue to grow in this game. And you have to love that, for a rookie to come in with that mentality and not be like, I've done this, like I crushed, at Georgia. Like he has the right mentality, I think, for all of that as well. So yeah, I mean, you can't hand out the A+ yet. We got some time to go, but you have to like the work in progress, if you will, that Will Campbell is. And you have to give credit to Josh McDaniels and this team for designing things the way that they do, to take advantage of the strengths and to try to minimize the weaknesses. I mean, that is a huge part of
Right.
the strategy of this game.
I mean, that's his whole job. Like, if he's not doing that, then what's he here for? I could call the plays if Josh McDaniels isn't going to maximize the strengths, diminish the weaknesses, like you said. And the thing you said about Will Campbell, where he said all the right things, that's what made him such a special prospect. It was, everything you talked about with this guy. It was he had really good success against SEC pass rushers, and that's what you're looking
Yep.
for out of a college player. So the tape was great, but it was the leadership. It was he wore the number 7 during practices and had the patch because he was their best player from Louisiana, and they believed that. And all these little things that went into it. And that's the stuff, like I mentioned earlier, I overlooked. And I think a lot of people overlooked because they saw really the one thing that was going to keep him from being upper echelon. And we've seen Mike Vrabel get burned on it. We've seen other teams get burned on it. Peter Skoronski was a Titans draft pick. He played left tackle in college at Northwestern. He was supposed to be the guy. They drafted him, and his arms were too damn short, and they had to move him into guard. And he's a really good guard. And that was kind of my argument. Even if you have this guy and he's not able to be the upper echelon left tackle that you need, at least you got a really good guard, and then you can go take another swing at it next year. But, like I said, he's shown that he can stay competitive and he can be that guy so far through 5 weeks.
Let's talk about the receiver who had such a big night on Sunday night against his former team in Steph Diggs. Basically went for a $150 and made the most of the opportunities, right? I mean, that one play down the field, he must have danced and moved and, got his groove on 6 different times to find a way to be
Yeah.
open for Drake Maye, right? And then, obviously like the little like crow hop on the other one to get, add some more yards to the play. I mean, this is all like vintage Diggs stuff, right?
Right.
So I guess that's the question, right? Are we approaching, or have we reached, vintage Steph Diggs, where he is a bona fide number 1 wide receiver for Drake Maye?
Yeah. I mean, I think people forget who Stefon Diggs was even before the injury. Like he wasn't AJ Brown, and he wasn't you
No.
weren't sending him down the sideline and he was going to just dominate a guy physically. It's being creative. It's being smarter than the defensive backs. It's really precise route running. And he's shown all of that, even in the early weeks when he was getting, you know, 15, 20 snaps a game and Demario Douglas was their starting slot wide receiver. Now that they've shifted him into that role, they've just given him more opportunities to be successful. It was never it clicked or finally he's over the injury. Like he's continued to be this guy. We've never seen him
Yeah.
not be Stefon Diggs, and he's just getting the opportunities now, and he'll continue to. I said it a couple weeks ago. Now that he's taken over in the slot, with how this offense is set up, tight ends, slot receivers, it's always been that way. It'll always be that way under Josh McDaniels, and he's the guy in the wide receiver room right now. You're going to see him get a lot of targets moving forward, and I don't see why he can't continue to have nights like he had on Sunday, where if you need gotta have it on third down, we're going to Diggs because they've done that
Yeah.
for 3 weeks now, and they've had so much success doing it. There's no reason to stop.
Yeah, yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I think the other thing you add to it is that this was all by design. right? I mean, he's coming off of a
Right.
major injury. They intentionally limited his snaps in the early going because they didn't want him to go out there and overdo it.
Right.
And he's too much of a competitor that unless they do it, uh, it's not going to happen. That's just the reality of it. And I don't think that's entirely unique to Diggs. I think that's a lot of guys in this league. But
Yeah,
again,
absolutely.
it's that notion of there's no gray area. Like, this is what we're doing with you. This is how we view you, but this is how we're going to approach the situation. And I think that lends itself to Diggs being able to be the leader he is on this team. Whether it be with what he's doing on the field or with the wisdom that he brings because he's been around the block in this league and he's been in it for a long time, or whether it's just sidling up to some of the younger guys and saying, okay, on this route, like, let me make this suggestion to you, or, all the little different things. But the way that the Patriots approached it, I think, help to build the ability for him to have the impact on and off the field that he's having. And I think he's going to continue to have.
Yeah, he even struggled with it a little bit. During training camp, they were out in Minnesota for joint practices, and he had, I think it was with Diana Rossini, he had an interview where he said, they don't
Yeah.
quite think I'm ready yet. He very clearly insinuated that he thought he was ready and he was good to go, but they held him back a little bit. And those are the things that we would have seen in past seasons really start to snowball into something, and they didn't. And obviously, the early success has had something to do with that. It's made things better, but he told us all on Sunday night before the game, his maturation process is second to none. Because I'll tell you, if it were 9 years ago and he were in Minnesota, that would have been a disaster. The way they've approached this would have been a nightmare to deal with. But he has matured and he's dealt with it. And I think he knew even a little bit in the back of his mind, this is the right way to go. I haven't earned anything yet in New England. If we're talking about the guy that he replaced, that was their best and most prolific wide receiver on the roster. What was Demario Douglas, and he obviously
Yeah.
replaced him, and they're going to move forward with Diggs, and Douglas is going to have to find another role. But he needed to maybe get a little bit of that humble pie and remember the fact that he hadn't earned anything yet. Now that he's starting to, he's going to be able to really be the Stefon Diggs that we've seen, all of the good things that we've seen out of Stefon Diggs the last few years. He's going to be able to do that because not only is he doing it on the field, but like you said, with the young receivers in this group. Kayshon Boutte is 23, Demario Douglas is 24, Matt Collins is a little bit older, but Kyle Williams is a rookie. He's 22 or 23. Now that he's going to be able to show, like, here's what I'm doing on the field, here's how you can do that, here's how you need to approach the game, it's going to be better for everybody within that room.
Here's when you know you're talking football. We just spent about 12 minutes talking about a left tackle, and then we talked a little bit
Yeah.
less than that on a wide receiver. You got to love it. We do have to talk a little bit about the quarterback and his growth, of course, as well. We'll do that on the other side. And coming up ahead, we'll also make some predictions and some picks as it's almost Thursday night. We got football coming our way before you even blink your eyes. Stick around. Foxboro Rush coming back right after this.
Well, he's continuing to grow and gain confidence and show us and show everybody and show his team and himself the ability to operate in the pocket, ability to operate in scheduled move the pocket plays, and then also off schedule. So putting the ball in good locations and only not throwing behind guys and going on the move and putting the ball in harm's way.
Look, I said at the top of the show, Keagan, but first primetime game for Drake Maye, and
Yeah.
he made the plays that he needed to make. I mean, it's really that simple, which also makes it that exciting. Because you talked about the play of the game. Obviously, is he's getting dragged down and he still manages to get the ball off to Diggs. I mean, come on. That is like a big boy quarterback play in this league. And, for him to do it on this stage, I think is huge. I think this speaks, to his growth, to his development. And and his potential to continue to grow into one of the top quarterbacks in this league. We're not there yet, right? Like, I'm not trying
Right.
to crown him, to use your terminology from earlier, but I think that we're seeing that he has that ability, and now it's just a matter of channeling it, coaching it correctly, and having him put the work in, which we all know he's doing, to
Right.
have it actually come to fruition.
Yeah, I think you saw a really cool example of like that the maturation process unfold in real time on Sunday. Chris Collinsworth, after the first drive, had a quote where he essentially said, once he starts to feel the pressure, his eyes go down and he loses sight of the rest of the field. And that's the difference between a young quarterback like Drake Maye and an MVP candidate like Josh Allen. And then you saw Drake Maye do exactly that throughout the rest of the game. I posted there were 4 examples of it where the pressure comes and you could see his eyes go down and then they come back up. And
Yeah.
the shot, where you mentioned earlier, Diggs kind of pirouetting toward the sideline, that beautiful throw on the sideline. And then he had 2 to Hunter Henry that were just broken plays where he's able to layer a throw over the linebackers in between 2 defenders to Hunter Henry. And it was, it was like he heard it at halftime and he was like, oh, maybe I should keep my eyes up and pay attention because he,
He just may have.
yeah, there was a criticism of his play and he immediately fixed it, on the spot. And I think that's if he's able to continue doing things like that throughout the year, that's not the only thing that he can improve upon. Obviously, he's a 23-year-old sophomore quarterback. The kid's not going to be perfect, but if he can continue to make improvements as quickly as we saw him on Sunday, you're going to really start to be talking about a guy, who do you want to start your franchise with? I think Drake Maye is going to be up there in that conversation.
Is he on that list for you right now? If you look around the league at quarterbacks that you'd say, if I could have, A, B, C, D, like say you got 10 guys, is he on that list for you?
Yeah, so I think if you think about right now, top whatever quarterbacks, he's not really even coming close to the top 10. Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott, those guys are going to be in that conversation, but they're all 30 plus. And I don't think anybody's choosing to start a franchise with anybody who's 30 plus unless it's Patrick Mahomes. So I did write down the list, and it's Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Those are your top 4. I think if anybody argues against it, they're lying to themselves. I have Jaden Daniels at 5. He's 26 in December, so he's older for a sophomore quarterback. But the talent that's there, I don't think you can even argue against it. Justin Herbert at 6, Jordan Love at 7. I have CJ Stroud at 8, and then I have Drake Maye at 9, and Brock Purdy rounds out the list at 10. So top 10
So
quarterbacks
you
you
don't
want to
have
start a
Jalen
franchise
Hurts
list.
there.
I don't. I think, with he's coming up on 30, and it's very clear that the system he was in last year maximized, what he was capable of doing. And we've seen early this year another new offensive coordinator, and he's struggling. He is not the same passer, in this system. Even they have Devontae Smith, they have AJ Brown, and it just
Yeah.
hasn't been the same. It's been a lot of tight end stuff. It's been a lot of running back stuff. And if I'm starting a franchise, I kind of want a guy who's going to make the offense. I don't want to have to mold the offense around him. So I would take Drake Maye over the guy who literally just won a Super Bowl with the Eagles.
Yeah. What about Bo Nix? Because he's another one that, Sean Payton obviously glows
Right.
about his young quarterback. Thinks he's going to be a superstar. We all heard that going into the season. Where do you sort of put him, in the Drake Maye camp? Obviously, Drake was a much higher
Yeah.
draft pick than Bo Nix.
I think Sean Payton loves his offense, and that's why he loves Bo Nix so much, because he's essentially playing quarterback through Bo Nix. That thing is spelt out to a T, and he's a really creative guy once the play breaks down, Bo Nix. I think his best moments, early in his career that you can attribute to him and not so much the offense have been those kind of breakdowns. He'll run around a little bit and he'll go find somebody down the field, but pure talent as a passer, like the arm it's not even a conversation. Drake Maye has a top 5 arm in football, I think. And Bo Nix is Bo Nix. He averaged like 2 yards per depth of target in college, and that's carried over a little bit in the NFL. So I don't really think that's close. I think Sean Payton loves him some Sean Payton. And his best way of going about that without coming across like an a-hole is by attributing it all to Bo Nix. You know, he's doing a great job doing exactly what I tell him to do.
Yeah. Well, he was all about the glow, after that win, to hand the Philadelphia
Oh yeah.
Eagles their first loss last weekend. Let's talk about the schedule upcoming because, the reality is that Drake Maye's growth, this team's growth is going to hinge upon what they can do moving forward. And Steph Diggs, being the voice of reason, right? Like, this is still early going here. Like, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves after we handed the Buffalo Bills a loss.
We won the game. I think it's like it speaks volumes that we're taking steps in the right direction, but don't get too high, don't get too low about it. It's early in the season, to the second quarter of the season. We're trying to do some of the right things. We did some good things out there. Obviously, a lot of things to correct, you know what I'm saying? Because, we felt like we left a lot of plays out there, but a win is a win. We'll take it. It's in the division. Those kind of count for two sometimes. So I was proud of the guys.
So here's a look at it. They obviously have the Saints in New Orleans this coming weekend. Then you have the Titans, the Browns, the Falcons, both of them coming here to Foxboro. And then in week 10, you go take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which, look, first glance at that schedule, the most daunting team on paper is probably the Buccaneers. That Browns defense is no joyride for sure. We have seen what they've done. But this to me it's opportunity, Keagan, right? I mean, you go out there
Yeah.
and you beat the Bills to hand them their first loss at home, in 14 games, to hand them their first loss of the season. And now you have a chance to go out there and show you can play consistent, sound football, 60 minutes each week, and really do yourself some significant favors in the division by earning wins, and in the AFC overall.
You can play with anybody. Now that you've beaten the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo in a game where there was a lot of pomp and circumstance. It's Drake Maye's first primetime matchup, all the things that we've mentioned. So without a doubt, I think this team can play with anybody. Now it's a matter of finding that consistency. And I think we're going to see it early in these next 2 weeks. New Orleans and Tennessee should be fighting for the number one pick. They're both really bad football teams. I think they have 2 wins combined between them. If you can go and actually, get over the hump of we're coming off a super adrenaline dump against Buffalo. Now we have to go to New Orleans, and we have to go to Tennessee. If they can win both those games, now you're talking about a playoff team, a team that should be able to handle business against Cleveland no matter how good that defense is. Atlanta's a really young defense that they're going to be playing against. And then Tampa Bay, obviously, I think that's one of the better teams in the NFC. You're going to have some trouble with them. But I look at that schedule, and then the Jets is the next game after Tampa Bay. I believe there's a bye in there as well. 4-2, and you go 4-2 there. Now you're 7-4, firmly, in position for a playoff spot going into the last 5-6 games of the season. And you're cooking right there. So I think 4-2 over the next 6. I really, really want to see how they look against New Orleans and Tennessee, because that's going to tell you all you need to know about their makeup and the way they're going to be approaching this.
Yeah, no, I mean 100%, because you get up again, for a game against the Bills. You get up for a game that's in prime time. There's a chance I think that Bucs game could get flexed. That
Yep.
we reach that point of the season. So we'll see where that lands. But these next 4, you're playing at 1:00. When you get to the Browns, is it still Dylan Gabriel at quarterback? I don't know. I mean, that's a question that's going to have to be answered probably that week, and depends on what happens between now and then for Cleveland. But you have to go if you want to be a football team that is content to be contended with. You have to go take care of business against the New Orleans Saints. You have to go take care of business against the Tennessee Titans, and quite honestly, you have to go take care of business against the Cleveland Browns and the Atlanta Falcons as well. That's just the reality of this league. Like, you have to earn the wins that you're fully capable of earning, because there's always going to be one that kind of slips away, right? I mean, you look at the game
Right.
against the Raiders to start the season, that was maybe a coin flip, but you look at the game against the Steelers, that is a game the Patriots should have won. They beat themselves in that game. And that
Yeah.
maybe, maybe that's the turning point, right? Like maybe they made so many boneheaded mistakes in that game that it gave, Vrabel and his staff the juice to be like, look, guys, is this who you want to be? Or are you going to go out there and are you going to beat the teams that you need to beat because you're not busy beating yourself? So, sometimes there's teams that it takes a loss like that to fire them up and to find that fire and that growth, and you face adversity and it goes, okay, we're either going to wilt or we're going to grow. And I think we're going to learn these next couple weeks exactly who this New England Patriots team is. As you said, these next 2 games on the schedule, they're huge. There is just no question about it. I think they're really significant for who they're going to be. And the next big question, of course, is what is their run game going to be? Because now you're without Gibson for the season, obviously the ACL, which we found out, Monday. But look, I mean, they anticipated that. I think they all had a feeling that
Right.
that's what it was Sunday night. So does it become a larger role for TreVeyon Henderson? How can he improve? Mike Vrabel talked about how he has improved and how he needs to continue to improve.
He's just continuing to see things out there in a different run schemes, under center, in the gun. We've tried to find him. Just we'll have some more stuff for him and everybody else that can help us, and like to have his get going on the kickoff return. We were close, 1 block away on 3 different kickoff returns, and so there's a lot of ways for us to get all those guys involved.
It's something that I know he struggled with throughout the first few games. Is there anything you've done in practice, or just how?
Well, we practice it. I mean, you have to practice it, and again, we believe in TreVeyon. I mean, we've seen him protect a bunch, in college, and identifying who to block, and then going to close the distance and coming to balance and not catching, and all those things that are important. So. We'll give him the tools, and we'll practice with him, and he's willing, and I'm confident that will continue to improve.
Look, I mean, those are the areas in which really any back coming into this league has to find growth. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But I also think that everybody in there, players, coaches, they all know that the TreVeyon has this explosiveness about him. And if you can get the ball in his hands, eventually good things are going to happen. And they're going to have to lean on him a little bit more here because you're down a back. I mean, and like you said, they're going to have to pull somebody up as well.
Yeah, when it comes to running the football itself, I think he's been fine. Ramondre Stevenson is clearly their best running back. No one's gonna argue that. The fumbles are what's doing him in, essentially, and that are gonna take him off the field. But TreVeyon's been fine. EPA per rush, I think, is like the best statistic you can find for running the football. Expected points added. When you break it up between left of the tackle, between the tackle and the center on both sides, and then right of the tackle, so 4 zones. The only zone in which they have a positive EPA per rush is left of the tackle. And who's run that ball out there more than anybody else? TreVeyon Henderson. So they want to get him in the open space. They want to give him more field to work with. They really worry about him running between the tackles on these, power runs with a fullback in front of him. They're not quite sure he's able to, read what's in front of him, slow himself down. He's kind of like a give me the ball and I'm going to knife my way in between as many people as possible and try to scratch and claw for yards. So once he starts to take that step forward, I think they're going to get a little bit more comfortable. But outside of that, that's where he struggled. He's got 15 catches on the year. A lot of those are designed. He hasn't been great about, getting in front of a linebacker and figuring out where the space in the zone is to give Drake Maye a check down. Ramondre's been great at that. Pass protection, I thought he was the best guy coming out in this class. He has not shown that. Ramondre Stevenson is a tremendous pass protector. He's also I think he's helped Drake Maye in calling protections. You've seen multiple times this year where Ramondre Stevenson
Yeah.
will tap Drake Maye and then step up at the line of scrimmage and kind of be like, all right, screw the little fake play action we're going to do. Give me some extra space to work with, and I'm going to protect you, give you some more time. So those are the things that are keeping Ramondre Stevenson on the field and TreVeyon Henderson off the field. Eventually, you're not going to have a choice if he keeps fumbling, he being Ramondre. But that's what I would like to see him kind of improve upon moving forward. And that's going to get him the ball more, obviously, not just on these left kind of zone runs to the outside, but more consistent touches throughout the game and give him more chances to break one open because we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Yep. No, we haven't. And, I think we will. I think it's a matter of time. And, I've said it before, but I also think that that's where the creativity that Josh McDaniels uses and the way he really tries to,
Yep.
match up the game with the opposing defense and find the ways that he can take advantage of that with who he has, right? A young offensive line, a sophomore quarterback who has obviously shown that he has all the ability in the world, but you want to try to support as best you can. And to your point, a veteran running back in Ramondre who is helping the quarterback, you don't want to take him off the field unless you're absolutely
Right.
forced to, because he's doing too many other things that benefit your offense as a whole.
They're close. They're close to being forced to taking him off the field. They're really, really close, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see what it looks like these next, I really Sunday. I mean, like
Yeah.
let's see what you got out there on Sunday against the New Orleans
If you
Saints, and
can't
can you
hold
take care of
on to
business?
it and right, if you can't hold on to the football and gash them on the ground, then you're not the team that we thought you were going to be. Because
Yeah,
the running game has been disappointing, at baseline. But against the New Orleans Saints, you should be bullying
yeah,
these guys, and I think
yeah,
it's going to be a big indicator of who they truly are this game on Sunday.
yeah. I mean, the Saints are a team who are still they're a young team, right? I mean, they eventually went with Spencer Rattler at quarterback, but it felt like this quarterback battle of, no one's really grabbing this and taking the position by the horns and saying this is going to be mine, and it wound up, being Rattler. They do have a lot of I think, veteran leadership on that team. You talk about
Yeah.
Demario Davis on the defense down there, and look, I mean, the defense took the ball away 5 straight times in their last game. So you have to be ready to contend with a team. It is any given Sunday. I mean, that's this league. But the Patriots should be able to go down there and take care of business. All right. I clearly need to take a break, so we're going to do that, and we'll talk about some picks on the other side. Foxboro Rush coming back at you. As we said, football is only one day away with a Thursday night matchup in the NFC East as the Philadelphia Eagles head up the Jersey Turnpike to take on the New York Giants. And this one, of course, coming off their first loss of the season, by way of the Denver Broncos last weekend. And, well, you have Jackson Dart and the New York Giants who are going to try to make it 2 in a row for Philly, but I don't see that happening, even for all the struggles that this Philadelphia offense is having.
It's not going to happen. I agree with you totally. I think based off of what we saw in the second half on Sunday with Philadelphia, like the offense looked horrific in the second half. They weren't able to get anything going. There's obviously going to be a clear, emphasis on kind of getting the ground game going, getting Saquon going, maybe trying to get AJ Brown the ball for once. For some reason they have a top 3 wide receiver and they kind of refuse to throw him the ball. In advantageous situations, I should say. They throw him the ball, but it's on like 3rd and 3 and it's a slant route
It's
and it's getting
bizarre.
thrown behind him.
It's
It's
bizarre.
such a weird offense that they're running. So I think if they're ever going to figure it out, it's going to be kind of on a short week, like let's throw away all the bull crap and do what we do well and try to really establish what we do well. So I think they're going to try to do that. And the Giants offense is gross, clearly, like we saw last weekend. They're turning the ball all over the place. Not a very good unit. I think they have a lot of good talent. It's not a good unit quite yet. So I've got the Eagles in this one.
It's interesting, right? I mean, Kellen Moore, obviously, he's going to be on the opposing sidelines as, the Patriots this weekend, and he was the OC for the Eagles a season
Right.
ago, and now it's Kevin Petula. We saw the offense really struggle last time the offensive coordinator changed there. I was reading an interesting piece that talked about how a couple of teams have really tried to blitz Jalen Hurts, and he's so good against the blitz that you're like, why are they doing it? But they've done it
Right.
a ton in the first half, and then they stopped doing it in the second half. And that's where, last weekend for sure, we really saw them struggle. But look, this is an opportunity for the Eagles, and I don't see them missing it. I think they'll win their 11th straight primetime game against the New York Giants on Thursday night. The aforementioned Denver Broncos are in London to take on Aaron Glenn, who is still searching for his first win as the head coach of the New York Jets. I don't think that's going to get any easier against the Broncos this weekend.
No, the Jets are really bad, and I think they're in the middle of a kind of that culture change that you saw the Detroit Lions go through when Aaron Glenn was first there with Dan
Yeah.
Campbell, and it took a really long time. 4-12, I believe, the first year. Then they started 0-7 the next year. So you're talking a 4-19 start. The Jets, it's probably not going to be any better. I hope for Aaron Glenn's sake that he gets the same grace that Dan
Leeway.
Campbell got. There's really
Yeah.
there aren't too many words for it. It's like we're doing you a favor by keeping you around this long. But
Uh,
I hope for his sake he does get there, because with what they're going through right now and with that quarterback play, it's going to be really hard to win anything this year.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, at some point, you need an infusion of some talent as well. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's not a knock on everybody on the Jets roster, but when you look at it collectively, they need more than what they have in order to rack up some wins. First head coach of the Jets to start 0-5. The LA Rams are in Baltimore this weekend, taking on what looks to be a Ravens team that is reeling and doesn't have its quarterback. And I mean, gosh, what challenges are the Baltimore Ravens not facing these days? I don't see how they eke out a win against the Rams.
Yeah, you said it, and we talked about it last week. Cooper Rush being their backup completely changes the fabric of what their offense is, and you saw on Sunday what it did. They weren't able to get much of anything going. So I think the Rams are one of many teams in the NFC. That's a really good conference. I think it's one of the best we've seen in a very long time. Is this year's NFC? Them, Tampa Bay I mentioned earlier, Seattle. San Francisco's a
Yeah.
surprise. Like a lot of really good teams we didn't even expect to be in the conversation for an NFC championship appearance. I think they're one of those teams, and they're gonna probably run away with this one.
All right, let's go rapid fire on a couple of the other 1 o'clock games here. Dallas and Carolina. Who do you like? This is a tough
Dallas, the
one.
Dak MVP run continues.
I don't disagree. Arizona heads to Indy after just a debacle of a loss and everything that hangs over their head. Indy's playing too well. I just see the Colts taking this one.
Yeah, same. The
Uh,
Cardinals aren't to be taken seriously.
yeah, unfortunately. I think Jonathan Gannon is a good coach, but obviously there's a whole lot going on there. Seattle, Jacksonville, a couple of top defenses. Who do you like in that one, Keegan?
Seattle, I think, they're going to be trying to bounce back from a tough loss. A million points getting scored, those beautiful throwback uniforms. What a great game that was. And Jacksonville, this is the definition of a slump, or a rat spot coming after their win on Monday night against Kansas City. I can't imagine that they're going to be playing as well as they did in that one.
We'll see. I'll take Jacksonville in that one. They're home. It's a long
Okay.
trip. I think they'll find a way to build on that win against the Chiefs. We'll take a look at some of the other games as we come back on the other side. One last quick break here on Foxborough Rush. Working our way through the Sunday slate here, picking it up with the Chargers, who head down to Miami to take on a Dolphins team that is an enigma still, trying to figure it out.
We're gonna go quick with these ones because we're running out of time. I have the Chargers, and I have written down Mike McDaniel's bad, fired.
We'll see if and when it happens this season. I agree with you. Chargers take this one. How about the Browns taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend and Aaron Rodgers against that Cleveland defense?
Yeah, I've got the Browns, and I have written down AFC North is weird.
AFC North is okay.
Weird.
Yeah.
It never
Yeah,
makes sense. The
it
Browns
is
are going to
it
get
is
one
weird.
win.
It doesn't. I mean, you look at the Ravens and you go, "Wait, what? What? What?" Okay.
I know.
New England and by the way, sorry, I'll take the Browns. New England and New Orleans, I'll take the Patriots.
Patriots, easy win.
Okay. Tennessee taking on the LA Rams. Rams.
Is it the Rams or the Raiders?
Oh, sorry, Raiders. Maybe I have it written down
Okay.
wrong. I was writing really fast.
I have the Titans, and I have Gross written down.
Gross. Okay. But you're taking the Titans?
I'll take the
Okay.
Titans.
So that does that mean the Raiders are grosser? Just wondering.
Yes, Geno Smith, I don't know what happened. He got his money and he's retired essentially. He hasn't done anything worth
Oh
anything
gosh.
this year.
He's just been throwing it to the other jersey. All right, CMC 100+ yards in every game this season. They take on Tampa Bay 425 on Sunday. This is a good one.
I've got the Bucks. Sneaky NFC contender.
Hmm.
I think they can make it out of the NFC if they play well enough in the playoffs.
Okay. I like the Bucks at home in this one. I just think, the cross country travel, you factor that in. I'll take the Bucks. Cincinnati with Joe Flacco. Does he get the start? Taking on a team he already beat this year in Green Bay.
Packers, and I've written down Joe Flacco? ? What a weird
Yeah.
trade that was. That makes no sense, but sure.
Yeah. I mean, got to find a way. Detroit, Kansas City on Sunday night. Who do you like?
Kansas City. They can't afford another loss. They're going to have to figure it out.
I'll take Detroit. I think they're gonna just pump. I just think they will. Monday Night Football, Buffalo and Atlanta.
Buffalo, Josh Allen superhero performance. I think he's going to be great in this one.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be huge. I think they're gonna have a hard time stopping Bijan. Last but not least, Chicago at Washington.
Chicago, extra day for Ben Johnson to fire up some weird plays against Washington. They're not very good. Got the Bears.
I'll take Washington. See ya.